After the infamous October Revolution and the great tragedy that was the Russian Civil War, many Russian generals fled to the various remote regions of the former Great Russian Empire in order to escape from the tyranny of the communists, in which every one of these generals believed that it would be them to reunite the empire and bring back the Tsar to the motherland. However, only one man can handle such a task: the Mad Prince of the Baltics, an extraordinary hero and leader of the West Russian Volunteer Army, Pavel Avalov. However, it is now 1922, and Pavel and the Baltic states are in complete turmoil. Lithuanian, Latvian, and Estonian activists march through the streets, wanting independence and referring to themselves as the Forest Brothers. Meanwhile, General de Gault's and the German garrison are planning to seize the vital port city of Riga and take over the Baltics themselves. Lastly, there are communists hiding in the forest, awaiting for us to be so weak that they will stab us in the back. Thus, we must prepare for the inevitable Baltic Civil War. First, we blockaded the Riga port. During this, we went ahead and begun our hunt for the Forest Brothers, all of which being completely successful. Our next objectives were to sabotage the German garrison's weapon supplies, to weaken them even further, and hunt down the communists that lived deep within the Latvian forest. After this, our next goals were to reinforce our border patrols, but then it was too late. Thurgold and his garrison secured Riga, signaling to the Baltic radicals that it was now time to secede. Before we could react, the communists in the forest rose up, and alongside that, Estonia declared war on us and the communists. Though we were somewhat prepared for such an occasion, we were still unorganized, however, in which the communists took advantage and launched a full-scale offensive. Thankfully, they had barely any manpower and were immediately stopped by our volunteer forces. During this, the Estonians left multiple gaps in their front lines, letting us send both our cavalry and infantry divisions to the key towns of Tallinn and Kuressaare, eventually capitulating them. This freed up our divisions up north and allowed us to launch a full-scale offensive against the communists, capitulating them in only a few days. After securing the north, we can now begin to look south against the Latvian brothers, who managed to defeat Gultz and secured Riga. Their army was similar to ours in strength, but we had the Cossack spirit within us and exploited every gap they had in their lines, eventually capitulating them within a couple of weeks. Lastly, there were the Lithuanians currently engaged with the Aryanists, though neither are going to be a challenge as they had left their backs wide open, and within a couple of weeks and under Avalov's leadership, the Baltics were secured. After this, Avalov realized that this was a wake-up call and realized it was now time to begin our destiny. Our first goal was to prepare both our industry and army for the upcoming wars. We will improve the industry by rekindling the Russian national spirit within the Baltic people and nationalizing some businesses, allowing us to begin trade with other parts of the world, as well as have the resources needed for our weapons. Then there is our army, which is unorganized, weak, and lacking any kind of fighting spirit. Therefore, we will begin a new recruitment system that will encourage new recruits fueled by both anti-communist and the imperial spirit to join the army, and change our focus from the failure that was static warfare to one of maneuver, but not with trucks, but with the Cossack traditions of horse warfare. However, we will not ignore the benefits that artillery provides. Thus, every regiment, both infantry and cavalry, will be equipped with artillery. Our last task was to figure out how we should take out the tyrannical Russian communists, and the plan was quickly thought of. Thus, within 1 year, we will launch a full-scale invasion against communist Poles, headed by the Red Napoleon and the Ukrainian anarchists. It has now been over a year since we have begun our great military growth. Every Russian, Baltic, and loyal German has joined our great army, now over 40 divisions strong, dominated by both Cossack spirit and a balance of infantry and Cossack divisions. Our strategy is simple: launch a surprise attack on the Poles and Ukrainians and liberate these lands from the rise of radicalism. So, let us now begin our reconquest of the territories of the Russian Empire.
Песен мы в сердце сложили, воспевая родные края. Беззаветно тебя мы любили, свято-русская наша земля. Высоко ты главу поднимай, кровью в подлости станом тех, кто предал себя и права. Ждет победы России святыня, отзовись, православная рать! Где Илья твой и где твой Добрыня? Сыновей кричит Родина мать!
And just like that, both the radicals have been defeated, and we have now secured the former Russian territories of both Belarus and Ukraine, while also granting the Poles their own Polish state. Our last goal before we can take the fight to the communists is to take over the Caucasus. However, not that much bloodshed will be needed, as they are currently being led by pro-imperialist General Kornilov. Thus, we sent a letter over to him asking him to join our front against the Russian socialists, and in return we will invade both Georgia and Armenia and bring them back into the empire. And thus, he accepted. After that, we placed our army against the Armenian and Georgian border and went ahead and begun the liberation of the region by using the same tactics that we had used back in the Baltic Civil War, but this time we had the support of light fighters and medium bombers, allowing us to swiftly capitulate the Georgian and Armenian traitors. It was during this war and the additional boost to our industry and manpower that we began work on expanding the Air Force with a focus on CAS fighters, alongside the establishment of adding motorized artillery and signal companies to our Cossack divisions in order to boost their breakthrough power. Lastly, we developed a more modern Cossack division. Instead of using horses, though, they will be using mechanized vehicles with motorized artillery and rocket artillery as main battalions and support. However, time is of the essence, as the Kazakh Russian army has already declared war on the socialists and are currently being pushed back. Thus, within only 15 days, we declared war on the socialists. We first used the element of surprise to make as much gains as possible, and when some socialist divisions did start to show up, we would just pin them in place. Our main goal was to capture the capital of the socialists, Moscow, as well as capture the vital port city of St. Petersburg. However, eventually the socialists finally put enough troops to stop us from reaching Moscow and prevent us from capturing the vital supply hubs in the area. However, we still managed to capture St. Petersburg, but were stopped when supply was beginning to run low in the north, and the socialists were strongly defending the supply hub of Novograd. Despite this setback, we began pushing even more through Central Asia until our supply ran out, right when we were on the outskirts of Moscow. Our new strategy at this point was to capture more supply hubs, and thankfully there was two nearby, Tula and Rizev. The battle for these were long and difficult, especially for Tula, which required us to use 2 force attacks just to capture it. However, thanks to these new supply hubs, we were finally able to push onto Moscow. The battle was hard fought. However, thanks to our Cossack divisions, we managed to capture the city. It was at this time that our new mechanized divisions were ready, and to test them out, we sent them to the southern front, where they exceeded our expectations. They broke through the enemy lines, and with our Cossacks, encircled almost the entire Southern Socialist Army. With such a great victory, we went ahead and just battle-planned our way past Moscow till the Socialists eventually capitulated. The peace deal was a hard one, but we eventually encouraged the Cossacks to let us have the entirety of the main Russian lands. After this war, we began searching for any remnants of the Romanov family, till we found one, in the small city of Ustasluk, where a crazy old man kept yelling that Alexei still lives. We thought he was crazy, until we saw a much older Alexei buying some potatoes from a nearby store. Thus, Alexei II has been found, and is now the new Tsar of Russia. However, the Cossacks reported that Nicholas II was found and coronated as well. However, the problem is that Nicholas II is still dead, thus, this man is an imposter. Before we could take action, we sent a letter to the Siberian government for unification, in which they accepted. Now it was time to get rid of the pretender. The war through the Cossack lands were difficult, and not really exciting to say the least, as low supply in the massive desert made it difficult to push through. But we still did it, in which after a couple of months of fighting, they were defeated. With that, all of Russia has finally been unified, with Alexei II as the new Tsar and Avalov Vermont as the new advisor of the new Russian Empire. Thank you so much for watching, and auf Wiedersehen, everybody.